You strong.
The protagonist of this story would give every penny he has to have the chance to enter another world, because he heard that whoever comes out from there can bring back a pile of gold, becoming rich. So Sejun squeezes every penny to buy a ticket to enter the tower. He eats nearly expired food, buys withered vegetables, lives more miserably than a dog to save, but still hasn't saved up 10% of the money. Then suddenly the author intervenes, and the space gate leading to the tower unexpectedly opens in front of him. Sejun, as soon as he sees it, shouts excitedly, loudly declaring his name. I, Park Sejun, will dedicate my whole life to climbing the tower. Black hole, please suck me in, ha ha ha. Normally, people would find this gate terrifying. This guy should be scared stiff. Who would be excited like this? Probably lost his mind. Seeing the gate starting to narrow, wanting to say goodbye to Sejun, no way he will accept that. With determination, Sejun pushes himself into the black hole. If you don't suck me in, I'll jump in myself. He dives in headfirst, falls flat on his face, but feels quite happy inside. The first floor of the tower is definitely the place to choose a profession before making money. But when Sejun looks up, he only sees himself inside a cave, no training ground or shopping area like those who came back told. He's exactly in a cave underground, with sunlight shining down on the photosynthetic grass. Feeling bewildered, oh my goodness, is he really the protagonist of this story, or is this just a technical glitch? 10 years ago, on a beautiful day in Seoul, South Korea, a 99-story tower suddenly rose, darker than a dog's poop, standing proudly in Gangnam City. It's not just one tower in South Korea, but a total of 100 towers simultaneously appeared all over the world. But no, I decided to leave a review and make a vlog of the challenge to climb the Get-Go Tower in 6 days and 6 nights. Suddenly, this huge thing appeared, and governments from all over the world sent people to investigate. The conclusion drawn was that the tower is 990 meters tall, cast from an exceptionally solid material, bomb-proof, so no one can find a way to get inside. Suddenly, a few people appeared, penetrating the tower walls and coming out. Without going through training, but suddenly making a debut in front of the press, being pursued like idols to extract information about how to enter and exit the tower. I didn't know anything. I was sitting on the toilet after finishing a big cup of milk coffee, then suddenly being sucked into a black hole. When I woke up, I found myself on the first floor of the tower, luckily with full clothes on. Those people are called awakeners by the media, randomly selected by some secret forces from various places around the world and dropped into these 100 towers. They held press conferences only talking about what they knew, basically on the first floor. Awakeners are allowed to choose a profession, and most people choose to be mages or warriors. After cleaning one floor, they will receive various rewards along with a ticket. This leaf-like thing is indeed a ticket for freedom to enter and exit the tower, allowing others to use it as well. But only awakeners can actually climb up to the tower. A reporter raised her hand to ask, does anyone know why this tower exists, and why people would risk danger and the monsters inside just to enter? No one knows the reason for the appearance of these towers, but many know why people want to venture in. The awakener standing nearby waited for the opportunity and then opened the wooden box in her hand, from which a dazzling pile of gold poured out like a stream. Needless to say, the reporters were horrified. Being scolded by the boss while working, and then seeing a pile of gold spilled on the ground like that, everyone there understood the reason immediately. Entering the tower feels humble, but coming out not knowing why one is rich. So it became natural for awakeners to sell their tickets for entry from 150 million to 200 million in a short time. Hundreds of people lined up to get them, gradually becoming commonplace. The grocery store owner didn't seem too excited about the news, thinking that these people were living a life of luxury. Do you see that? Park Sejun, then 26 years old, buying discounted onions. Whatever the store owner said, he just nodded along. Looking at his phone, calculating tuition fees, bank interest, and rent, his savings before were about 12 million. That's all he had accomplished in a few months. If the ticket price goes up again, I wonder if Sejun's teeth would all fall out before he could buy one. He stares at the towering black tower, suddenly letting out a heavy sigh. Then suddenly, he remembers he can't lose faith. He cheers himself up by shouting that he will become the chairman soon. Looking at the discounted bundle of onions Sejun just bought, maybe if he follows the way some idols share online, he might make a decent amount of money. Thinking about a bright future, from a guy planting onions to becoming a tower-defeating hero, then proposing to Blackpink's Jisoo, he feels ecstatic just thinking about it. Cheering himself up eagerly, suddenly behind Sejun, something like a swirling vortex appears and expands. Until its shadow covers his head and the wind blows briskly, he realizes there's something there and turns his back to look. It's a gate. At a glance, Sejun recognizes it as the one that sucked the Awakeners into the tower. His face flushed with excitement. The opportunity has come. He jumps into the black hole, even though it had been rejecting him. And that's how he appears in this empty cave. Not the rumored first floor. It's even worse than a parking lot. To the right is a pond, unsure if it's drinkable water. Above is a skylight to watch the clouds. Overall, it's peaceful. Only inside, Sejun sits skinny like a sleep-deprived fool, lacking even hope. Wandering around this cave for a whole day, Sejun sees no way out. He screams, calls for help, cries, even raps, but then realizes there's no one nearby. Could this be the story of Alice's adventures in Wonderland? But with Sejun, the poor guy falling into a land no one knows? In extreme panic, suddenly the phone in his pocket rings. It's already 6 a.m. the next day. The 24-hour challenge as a prehistoric man is over. Now he realizes he's extremely hungry, glancing over at the bag he bought yesterday. Luckily, it's still fresh. A bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 10 stalks of green onions, a few sweet potatoes, a pumpkin, and an apple. Sejun grabs the apple and bites it eagerly. Eating an apple early in the morning is fine, but eating down to the core still doesn't fill his stomach much. Knowing this now, if he had bought a pack of hot dogs, might last for 3 meals. But Sejun doesn't have that, so he turns to attack the sweet potatoes. Why do the sweet potatoes taste so good in his mouth today? Crispy and sweet. Normally he'd steam or grill them, but now he's so hungry that eating them raw seems fine. This is unverified. Whoever has eaten raw sweet potatoes, comment and share your experience. Chewing too quickly, a piece of sweet potato gets stuck in his throat. Sejun grabs the water and drinks frantically, thinking he's about to die. Having eaten and stay alive, he lies back, panting heavily, temporarily relieving his growling stomach so that he can think. Normally, he doesn't have time to gaze at clouds and scenery. Now there is, a full continuous 24 hours. Sejun wonders if there's a way out before the food runs out. With this kind of food, even the healthy eating group would cry seeing this, and if no one comes to rescue him, he will of course turn into a complete dried-up corpse. And to make it worse, a dried-up corpse with a mouthful of green onion smell. Horrifying just to think about. He snaps out of that dreadful vision, determined not to lie down and wait for death like that. He's made it into the dream tower, can't give up now. Suddenly, Sejun glances at the apple beside him and gets an idea. He finds a soft, damp spot, digs a small hole, puts the apple core in, and covers it with soil. Next, he divides the onion roots and greens in half. These 10 onions can be divided for both food and planting. Making 5 more plots, Sejun fills them with 3 tomatoes and 2 sweet potatoes. Adding a bit of water, he feels confidently alive and full of vitality. The future he's planting with his own hands is right here, not anywhere else. While he's excited, suddenly a loud noise startles Sejun. His brain loads faster than a Formula One race car, hearing a terrifying sound like this. Let's not say it's a monster attack. When he looks up at the cave ceiling, he realizes it's a solar eclipse occurring. The screeching sound continues to reverberate in the space, resembling the moans of 2 beasts, singing California Hotel, making his ears almost deaf. Some shadow hovers above, accompanied by flapping sounds. When he looks up again, he notices the silhouette of a dragon flying across the sky. Oh my, isn't that a black dragon? So beautiful, it's breathtakingly stunning. Sejun collapses on the ground, gasping for breath, not knowing how he ended up with a strange piece of root he snapped off earlier under the moonlight. The alarm hauntingly rings, waking Sejun up again, still at 6 a.m. in the sunlight-filled cave. He brings his phone closer to see how long he has been unconscious. Oh my, 2 days, unconscious for 2 whole days. Getting up too quickly, his back hurts lying in the same position for 48 hours. A 26-year-old's back now feels like 62's. After sighing, he sits back down and sighs again, feeling tired and hungry, completely drained of energy. But behind him is a huge, blackened tree. Sejun jumps back in shock, realizing it's the onions he planted. How did they grow so quickly, even taller than him? This supersized version only took 2 days to grow while he was unconscious. How absurd! Sejun calmly reconsiders that perhaps it's the soil conditions in the tower make the plants grow differently than outside. He bends down again to find a spot to plant potatoes and tomatoes. He's surprised that in just 2 days they've sprouted, and there are 52 of them, like a small farm. The seedlings are still small, so they enjoy good sunlight, but these onion plants have lost their sunlight due to the shade, so Sejun decides to trim the tops. With their size increased, the onion leaves have become quite tough, and it seems like he's pulling out entire trees rather than just cutting leaves. He harvests a bunch of small leaves, like harvesting rice. Curious about how giant onions taste, he puts one in his mouth and takes a bite. He opens his mouth wide, thinking he's breathing out a pile of fire like a dragon. The taste is like eating level 7 spicy noodles, so Sejun rushes to the nearby pond to scoop water into his mouth. His mouth swells, but his stomach doesn't seem to have any problems digesting it. It seems to be digesting fine, but he eats carefully to avoid swelling his lips. He takes the onion leaves to dry, then returns to the bunch of potatoes and tomatoes he had set aside from the beginning. This morning, there's only a tiny tomato, but Sejun starts to have hope that he won't die of hunger here. Here, there's no night. The sun never sets, with occasional lunar phenomena. It's a planet that looks like the moon, but has a green hue that obscures the light for a period. But Sejun recalls that this only occurs from the 10th floor onward, while he's clearly in the underground parking lot. Yet a gigantic black dragon appears underground, which likely isn't an illusion. Because he's longed for the day he could step into the tower, Sejun has researched a lot about the Phoenix Society cleaning the 37th floor. Most awakened individuals are on the lower floors, so this review channel is full of information. All you need is to join the society to access it. From floor 10 down, there are skeleton soldiers. From floors 11 to 20, there are demons, and above that are giant green devils. There's some information about spiders on floor 31, but no one has mentioned dragons yet. Even lizards aren't mentioned anymore, let alone dragons. However, compared to the information he knew, Sejun suddenly felt extremely doubtful about his worldview. After all, he's in a floor that no one has mentioned. His mind races, feeling like he stumbled upon a floor that no hunter has set foot on yet, feeling incredibly lonely. As he opens his eyes to look at the sky, suddenly some drop fall on his face, making Sejun sit up. He's surprised and can't believe it's rain because the Awakeners have said the weather in the tower is always harmonious. Look, there's someone's figure darting over there. Sejun freaks out, thinking some monsters just dropped by to say hello. Turns out it's something white with fur, shaped like a rabbit. But it's a rabbit with drooling mouth. The drops of water falling on Sejun's face seem to be from it for sure. He's never seen such a cute monster before, so he keeps staring at it until it jumps down. Oh my, this crazy rabbit. Does it want to die in a cave over 10 meters high? It kicks its foot on Sejun's head while he's still bewildered, then flips around and lands like a true ninja. Ignoring the owner of the onion field, the rabbit runs back there, pointing at a tree and squeaking pipey. It doesn't look like a normal rabbit at all, and it's even saying pie. Is it a Pikachu, a white version? Huh, do you want some onion? Sejun steps forward to cut off a piece of the green onion and decisively hands it to the Pikachu-like creature. It takes it eagerly, chewing happily, without any sign of spiciness. Feel free to have more. There's plenty of onion, Sejun says. He's getting used to eating this spicy stuff, noticing the onions growing rapidly. At this rate, he could harvest twice a day and still be fine. After finishing the onion leaves, the Pikachu-like creature stands up excitedly, raising its hands. Sejun thought it was full and wanted to exercise, but it turns out it's calling someone from the cave entrance. Another unfamiliar rabbit-like figure jumps down and is promptly greeted by the Pikachu-like creature. It's holding a straw hat and a watering can in its hands. In no time, there are 2 Pikachu-like creatures dressed like farmers in front of Sejun. He stares blankly for a moment, finding these 2 rabbits strange. He even realizes they might be a married couple. Pie seems about right. They do look affectionate. Hey, don't tell me at this point, but we just realized the main characters of the story aren't the poor lad Sejun, but this rabbit couple. The gentle sunlight filters through the cave entrance, illuminating the fresh onion leaves. A pair of scissors cuts the onions swiftly, and nearby, a watering can sprinkles water on the tiny seedlings on the ground. The one doing those tasks is certainly not Sejun, but the rabbit pair he met yesterday. They happily sing while each doing their own tasks, looking like the hosts here. While the actual host is sitting in a corner, watching the male rabbit sings, arms holding the freshly cut onion leaves, Sejun begins to feel regret. Was eating onions all day not enough? Now he's forced to watch this romantic movie. But who's to blame now? Blame himself for being naive. Yesterday, the rabbits begged him to stay here with extremely pitiful looks, with sparkling round eyes and adorable pipey cries that could melt anyone's heart. Ordinary people like Sejun can't resist such a full-force attack. That super cute appearance has pierced his heart. All right, I'll stay as long as you want. I really like it here, but I still have to pretend to be cool outside. No work, no food. You can't just sit around and not eat, you know. Sejun demanded that they assist with farm work, even though there wasn't much to do in this cave besides cutting onion leaves. Before he could finish, the two rabbits jumped into his lap, their soft fur constantly rubbing against him, making him almost faint from their cuteness. Now that he's calmed down and thought about it, Sejun suddenly feels like he's being psychologically manipulated. These rabbits are too dangerous. He can only sigh. He's already agreed inadvertently, and now he has to accept it. Suddenly, his eyes catch the farming tools on the rabbits. It seems those items are equipment. The male rabbit's water bottle has an endless supply of water, while the apron the female rabbit wears is like Doraemon's magical pocket, constantly producing necessary farming tools. Even the rabbits are fully equipped from head to toe, yet Sejun has nothing. Does that make him feel jealous or angry? Lost in thought, the male rabbit waves his hand repeatedly, signaling that they've finished their work and want him to check. Aside from the drying onion leaves, everything else remained the same, with no changes to the potatoes. Glancing over at the tomatoes, Sejun was extremely excited to see that the saplings had grown significantly larger. Could it be because of the diligent care from the rabbit couple? While he was busy admiring the plants, the two rabbits watched anxiously, their eyes seeming to ask if that was enough to make them stay. Sejun slowly turned around and then gave a thumbs up. "Come on over, you two." As soon as he said that, the rabbits happily jumped up and then excitedly chattered with each other, leaving Sejun clueless. In less than a second, they transformed forward as fast as lightning, causing the ground dust to roll up into a circle, startling him and making him fall backward. Once he regained his senses, he saw them huddled in a corner. The female rabbit directed the male to dig, and after a while, he dug a hole. The female rabbit happily sang and made a flower wreath, then hung it on a wooden board. A rabbit hole appeared, and the female rabbit proudly pointed to their new home, while the male rabbit looked exhausted from the digging. Sejun couldn't help but marvel at the rabbit's speed, especially the male one, and praised him profusely, making him very pleased. While laughing happily, he suddenly felt a white arm slap him. The female rabbit was blushing and looked embarrassed, Sejun sensing something fishy going on. Indeed, seeing the female rabbit pointing towards the rabbit hole made the male rabbit turn pale, hastily shielding his body but still being dragged away by his wife. He pleaded for help from Sejun in despair, feeling breathless from the digging and now lacking the strength to come up with excuses for days on end. The male rabbit's screams vanished behind the door, replaced by the sounds of kisses from the female rabbit. Sejun stood outside, laughing to himself, wishing his friend strength to overcome this ordeal. What a life, indeed, dealing with such unexpected situations. A 26-year-old guy feeling jealous of a male rabbit. Quite a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? However, he quickly regained his optimism and retreated to his own space, respecting the privacy of the rabbit couple. Sejun leaned back on the pile of onion leaves, comforting himself, acknowledging that despite the solitude, having rabbit companions wasn't so bad after all. As he relaxed, black smoke rose from his armpits, wondering if it was due to being dirty for so long that it had reached this level of odor. Feeling too hot, he jumped up like a spring, accompanied by a sharp cry. Sejun rolled on the ground due to the burning sensation on his back. It was only later that he realized the cause was the dried onion leaves catching fire, as the sunlight passed directly through the water bottle aimed at the onion leaves. Watching that scene sparked an idea in his mind. Necessity truly is the mother of invention, activating his intelligence. Sejun's face looked as guilty as a thief, but in reality, he felt like he was narrating a survival vlog. In this harsh environment, I was fortunate to find onion leaves and a water bottle. Thanks to diligently watching YouTube while outside, he remembered how to use a clear plastic bottle as a lens to focus sunlight and create fire, like those survival vloggers on deserted islands. However, reality and imagination were worlds apart. He arched his back, holding up the water bottle, wanting to drop his arms, but only smoke rose instead of igniting a fire. Disappointed, he slammed his hand on the ground, not knowing where he went wrong. He sighed in frustration. Feeling dejected, he sat on the ground, wondering where he had made a mistake. He sighed heavily. And yet, a small flame flickered in the middle of the onion leaves, astonishing Sejun, though he seemed to understand a little. In the rabbit hole, after a fierce struggle, the male rabbit was exhausted, panting heavily, followed by the female rabbit's satisfied face emerging from the burrow, seeing the boss collapsed in front of them. Thinking the boss was depressed because he was abandoned, the male rabbit was extremely worried, approaching only to find him blowing air into the pile of dried onions. Although it didn't understand what was going on, it immediately offered help, and Sejun happily agreed. With the rabbits taking care of blowing air into the fire, Sejun cheered them on while holding up the water bottle to focus the light. This smooth teamwork finally paid off, and a flame burst forth, success achieved. Sejun cheered joyfully. Now that there was fire, they could cook and boil water like humans again. His eyes glanced over the onions behind, immediately cutting some to test out the fire. Two obedient rabbits sat quietly watching him grill the onions. Is this okay? Sejun lifted the slightly charred onion to check, quickly removing all the burnt parts before eagerly taking a bite. With just one bite, his whole body trembled with excitement, making the rabbits think he was poisoned. Oh my, it's so sweet. Sejun's eyes suddenly lit up, the sweetness like sugar rushing straight to the brain, an explosion of flavor never before experienced, making him feel like a white horse galloping across vast green fields. Chewing eagerly, he continued grilling onions, praising their deliciousness, making the rabbit couple drool. The male rabbit immediately followed suit, grilling onions, alternating between chewing and praising. Whoa. Both of them hugged each other's cheeks, never having tasted anything so delicious in their lives. Eat some more. Sejun generously told the two rabbits to make themselves at home. There's no meat, but they can eat as many vegetables as they want. Another day spent wandering in the Black Tower, but today his stomach was filled with cooked food, so he could sleep well tonight. The next morning, Sejun lazily stretched and got up, heading to the nearby pond to wash his face as usual. As he was washing his face, he happened to glance over to the side, where the garden that was barren a few days ago was now covered in greenery. The onions had been harvested, the tomatoes had been watered, and even the seemingly withered sweet potatoes had sprouted lush green vines. The rabbit couple did a great job. Sejun was extremely pleased with their diligence, then suddenly remembered last night. After they got the fire, all three of them made torches from onion leaves. The rabbits were in charge of cutting the onions while he tied the leaves together and placed them around the cave. With the light, moving around became easier. Because it was dark by the pond, he also carefully placed a large torch there. Before he could find a place to put the torch, there were small movements under the water. A fish suddenly darted straight at Sejun's face, startling him greatly, but thanks to his quick reflexes, he managed to dodge to the side in time. The fish missed its prey and flopped onto the ground, struggling helplessly, much to Sejun's surprise. Because it was the first time he had seen a fish being attracted by light, it was truly magical. The Tower of Magic was indeed different. Everything was surreal. So now, besides having light, he was also supplemented with protein. Sejun quickly grabbed the floundering fish on the ground, wrapped it in onion leaves, and placed it in the fire. Sejun eagerly grilled the fish. It had been a long time since he smelled this rich aroma, making his mouth watered incessantly. When the fish was cooked, he couldn't wait to take a big bite. It wasn't fishy at all. It was incredibly delicious. As he was chewing, he heard disappointed sounds nearby. He turned and saw a pair of white rabbits staring at him, pointing at his mouth, which was salivating profusely. What's this? Do rabbits also like salty food? They nodded in annoyance, and he suddenly remembered that these weren't ordinary rabbits. Life continued to pass by quietly like that, until a few days later Blue Moon appeared again, thanks to which Sejun knew its cycle was 30 days. To keep track of the days, he had used a laptop and a power bank to charge his phone, but they didn't last long either. One setback after another, he resorted to carving symbols on the stone to record the number of days he had been lost here. In the blink of an eye, it had been 61 days living like a primitive man, no electricity, no internet, but he managed to survive. mostly thanks to the rabbit's routine like clockwork. They always went to sleep at 7 p.m. and woke up at 5 a.m., so he never feared counting the days wrong. And some good news had arrived at the farm a few days ago. Early in the morning, the rabbit husband had just opened the door, and a bunch of golden-furred rabbit babies ran outside. Looking at the mischievously adorable bunch of youngsters, he laughed with tears in his eyes, wanting to hug and cuddle them all, wishing to see them every day. Oh, old man. The 5 rabbit babies immediately hopped over, causing Sejun to fall backward to the ground. But he was extremely happy. The appearances of these fluffy little bundles had made his dull life become more joyful than ever. Suddenly having an additional 5 workers to plant vegetables wasn't too bad, huh? But their 2 elderly parents weren't as thrilled. They were already feeling weary early in the morning. Being a kind uncle, he immediately took on the responsibility of looking after the children, so the rabbits could enjoy their breakfast leisurely. Carrying all 5 round fluffy bundles to the garden to admire the tomato flowers, but none of them wanted to sit still. The group of excited rabbit babies played hide and seek, leaving the uncle sitting there laughing foolishly. Taking advantage of the rabbit babies playing nicely, Sejun used the spare time to pollinate the flowers, using a stick to poke around for a while, making his 26-year-old life want to split in 2. Wouldn't it be nice if there were bees here? After sighing deeply and reluctantly bending his back to continue, he was about to resume when he saw a baby rabbit burying its head into a flower. Perhaps seeing the uncle working hard, the baby rabbit wanted to help with pollination using its nose, but ended up getting its nose covered in pollen, sneezing and falling backward. Seeing this, he burst into laughter as if he had won a lottery. This scene was worth more than gold. Laughing until his jaw hurt, he finally helped the baby up and scolded it gently, telling it not to do that again. But suddenly his eyes widened with surprise. Fruit! After a grueling period of hard work, the tomato plants had produced their first fruits, bringing joyous singing and dancing to both man and rabbits in the garden. This was just one day before Blue Moon's appearance. Although the sunlight was still streaming into the cave, it was already late afternoon. Sejun hurriedly prepared for the upcoming event. To avoid attracting monsters to the cave, he extinguished the large fire, leaving only a small flame in a crevice between the rocks, and carefully blocked it with a small stone to prevent light from leaking out. He also camouflaged himself with a bunch of rolled-up onion leaves on his head and body. Personally, I think the main character looks no different. The rabbit couple were also coaxing their kids into the cave. Everything was ready. Glancing up at the sky, he guessed it was almost time, so he instructed the rabbit father to close the door carefully. If they survived the night, they would meet again tomorrow. After all, Blue Moon is just a mosquito game, right? Sejun raised his thumb to reassure both the rabbits and himself. Just a few hours later, the warm sunlight disappeared, replaced by the cold blue light of the moon. The Blue Moon officially began. The rustling of insects and the growling of monsters made him unable to sleep. When will it end? Sejun, exhausted, looked out at the familiar garden. Although he had carefully hidden everything with onion leaves to mask the scent, he still couldn't feel at ease. Every time he heard the chilling howls echoing in the distance, he tensed up, goosebumps covering his body. He prayed earnestly, hoping this time would end peacefully. As he was praying, a loud noise rang out, making Sejun freeze, terrified, as he looked up at the mouth of the cave. Outside, a large, chubby red foot was stomping heavily on the ground. A big, fat figure was waddling, causing trees to sway. After a while, it noticed the small mouth of the cave under the bright moonlight, and a giant red bear appeared, towering. It stood right in front of the cave mouth, casting its shadow on the ground. Sejun was speechless, shocked, thinking it's the end for them. Anxiously looking up, he saw the enraged bear, saliva dripping, limbs motionless. Sejun tried to calm down, planning to escape before being noticed, slowly and gently reaching for his backpack. Unfortunately, the backpack was not zipped, so the items inside immediately fell out. The tomatoes and plastic bottle tumbled to the ground. Sejun stood frozen, staring at the scattered items. Sweat continuously poured down, heart pounding, slowly raising his eyes. Wow! Surprise, young man! The bear's furry face was right in front of him, causing all the suppressed horror to burst out into immediate screams. Sejun widened his eyes and screamed, causing the bear to quickly growl and spit out foam. This is it. He's done for with this bear. The sun was shining directly on his head, but the old man was still sleeping, drooling. The baby rabbits tried to shake him awake, but to no avail. Oh my goodness! He'll wake up later, Sejun stuttered, intending to push the rabbits away. The rabbit father couldn't let this boss touch even a single hair of his babies. He didn't hesitate to act first, and there was a crisp slap. The rabbit father woke up and slapped him hard, making Sejun's eyes sparkle with pain just from watching it. Oh, Sejun stuttered incoherently as he sat up. Oh my, he thought he had just returned from death's door. The entire rabbit family surrounded him, thinking he was dead. They were moments away from mourning their loss and appointing a new leader. Sejun looked around in a daze, realizing the sky was clear and Blue Moon had ended. He breathed a sigh of relief. The rabbit father let out a sound of agreement, looking very awake compared to Sejun. Why do I always faint during Blue Moon events? He wondered. Every time leaving me with aching body and a fuzzy mind, feeling nauseous. He tried to stimulate every nerve to remember what happened last night. From the moment our eyes met with the bear to its earth-shattering roar, the memory automatically stopped. Recalling that extreme fear still haunted him, almost becoming a midnight snack for the monster. Seeing the uncle trembling in fear, the little rabbits jumped on him for comfort, but somehow he kept shivering uncontrollably. It turns out, fainting in the middle of the dewy night led to catching a cold. The mother rabbit, upon noticing, rushed back to where he hid the fire yesterday, adding more dry onion leaves to make a big fire. Sejun was covered by a blanket of onion leaves, sitting huddled in front of the blazing fire. A while later, the mother rabbit even brought out a fish for him to eat. Feeling exhausted, yet having a hot, steaming piece of fish to eat, with a few cute kids around, all fatigue seemed to vanish. However, Sejun had a new concern, that the monster had discovered their hiding place, unsure if it would return. Yesterday, he narrowly escaped death because the cave was too small for it to enter, but if he encountered a smaller monster, he would have died long ago. Sejun had tried hard to survive until now, with a family and descendants to protect. He couldn't die so easily. Looking down at the fish nibbling away, taking another mouthful, he resolved to eat plenty of food to become stronger. The elders have taught that only with food can one find the way. The stomach must be full first to have the strength to fight. While chewing on the rabbit, Sejun was startled by a sudden shout. He immediately looked in the direction it pointed and discovered a tomato shining with a sea blue color. Thinking he still had aftershocks from the fainting spell, he hurried back to see that not only was it an unusual color, but it was also as big as a golf ball. Until now, tomatoes were always tiny. This strange-looking one must have come from heaven. Sejun held up the tomato in amazement. It looked uniquely fascinating. He wanted to recite a spell for the tomato to fall down, but before it could fall, Sejun fainted again. As he was marveling at the size of the tomato, a system notification suddenly appeared. Congratulations, he had completed the task of harvesting moon energy-containing fruits. This wasn't a typical notification window. Sejun was stunned, his mouth agape in disbelief. The system sent another message. This remarkable achievement has attracted the attention of the tower management. He thought he might receive a rewarding gift or prize, but the tower management showed displeasure, which bewildered him. What's wrong? Who wouldn't be happy about this? The tower manager explained that he had just discovered that Sejun was an uninvited guest, trying to figure out how to conceal his mistake. Reading the message made him extremely angry, realizing that his presence here was just a misunderstanding. Sejun frantically shook the system board. For the past 61 days, he had struggled to survive in this strange place. And now, they're saying it's just a mistake? Wait until I'm out, then I'll sue them all to the authorities. Maybe they think he's too aggressive and might throw a punch. The system silenced him again, making him feel incredibly uncouth. Suddenly, the message, "The tower manager is awakening you," appeared. Before he could even think whether he was a kitty or a Mickey Mouse, a green light emerged beneath his feet. As he transitioned from dream to reality, he slowly realized he was assigned by the tower manager to play the role of a fully awakened consciousness. Moreover, he was assigned a specific profession by the tower manager. Sejun excitedly hoped for luck to come to him as a wizard. In response to his strong hope, the tower manager assigned him a very relevant profession. He became a tower farmer, ranked F, with a bit of fireworks for extra fun. Too happy, Sejun and the rabbit stood frozen like statues. Is this expression too happy? The tower manager generously offered additional benefits for being a farmer, including robust health, closeness to nature, and points for harvesting crops. Hold on, status window. Explain it to me again. Why am I being asked to be a farmer when I'm planting crops? Why? It doesn't know. Because there's no darkness here, so there are no stars. The system always displays Park Sejun Level 1, Tower Farmer Profession, with no skills yet. Sejun felt like his blood pressure was dropping, envisioning a grim scenario. The day he leaves this place and gets invited to a talk show in a fancy suit. The host announces the awakening of the simulated Park Sejun, then respectfully asks what his profession is, to which he replies, "I'm a tower farmer." How humiliating. Sejun shouted in a hoarse voice. Even the chairman of the Farmers Association didn't seem impressed. Clutching the green tomato in his hand, anger surged through Sejun, almost crushing the fruit, until he noticed the rabbit family looking up at him. The whole family looked at Sejun with surprise. He stepped back gasping as he realized he was scaring them. Suddenly, Sejun felt his grip on the tomato weaken, realizing how hard everyone had worked to grow it. The fire on the pile of dry onions still burning brightly. The onions they planted swayed in the sun. The group had put in a lot of effort to grow this. With a gentle smile, Sejun decided to embrace his role as a farmer. From the surface of the tomato emerged a glowing circle like an electronic device, followed by a sudden appearance of information before Sejun, revealing it to be an E-grade magic tomato infused with Blue Moon's energy, granting 0.05 experience points. Going from one surprise to another, Sejun couldn't believe this seemingly ordinary fruit was actually an item. Although the experience points gained were small, it still brought Sejun a small joy. Seeing Sejun and his farm clearly inside the glass sphere, someone seemed unhappy and grinding their teeth. Sejun, oblivious to all these, was busy holding hands and dancing with the rabbit family. This system is most adept at stirring up trouble when people are happy, suddenly assigning him a task to provide magic tomatoes to the building's management. The reward is the farmer skill. Without completing the task of handing over the tomatoes, death is inevitable. The mission is stated as if it's threatening him. Extremely absurd, Sejun feels a shiver at the word death, calling it a task, but its main function seems to be intimidation, right? If you want something, ask for it politely. Speaking like that won't get you anywhere. Do you see how simple human life is? He shakes his head in frustration with an unaccepting demeanor, but the word death stubbornly remains on the window, eroding his determination. Reluctantly, Sejun bows deeply at a 90-degree angle, offering the tomato because he still very much desires to live. The item disappears from his hand, marking the completion of the mission, and the window switches to receiving a new task. Feeling tense, suddenly becoming simple makes Sejun lose his vigilance. He happily clicks on the receive button, obtaining the farming skill, albeit a basic one, seed planting level 1, slightly enhancing the germination ability when a seed is sown. He wants to curse so badly, but Sejun's heart has died a little. He's a farmer, not a one-handed farmer, so why give him the seed planting skill? And on top of that, only a slight enhancement. Why not make it stronger for a better gift? Well, he has to accept it as it is. The next day, he harvests green onions again. Sejun holds his onion torch and ventures into the pond in the cave, attracting the crazy fish that leaps up at the sight of light, hitting it with a blow that sends it crashing to the ground. He thought it was a carp or catfish, but it turns out to be a very strange piranha. Since waking up, Sejun can now earn experience points. For each fish caught, he earns 2 points, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and they're the only source of protein in the cave. Now that he's reached level 2, he slows down a bit. The pond isn't that big. If he keeps greedily catching them, these fish will become extinct. He takes the grilled fish. Sejun eagerly calls the kids to come and eat with him. The slightly older bunny kids can already eat a whole fish by themselves, keeping him busy distributing. The rabbit couple quite enjoy this dish. They find the fish delicious. Since becoming a fake awakener, Sejun has seen information online that they're not white Pikachu, just simple white rabbits working as farmers. However, he's been following this channel for a long time and hasn't seen any mention of this monster species, perhaps because he hasn't registered as a member. Perhaps this species specializes in hardcore farming rather than fighting, so fake awakeners specialize in clearing levels and don't know about them. Unable to communicate with them, Sejun can't ask anything. He thinks the rabbit couple lost their farm for some reason, wandering until they coincidentally found him and their prehistoric cave. After everyone finishes eating, Sejun stands up excitedly, saying today is an important day for the farm, and the rabbit couple immediately respond. The moment everyone has been waiting for, the magical tomatoes ripen and hang thickly on the branches, drawing admiring gazes. After so long of sowing, watering, and caring, it's finally harvest day, and Sejun feels touched. Sejun reaches out his hand, ready to pick them, but as he comes close, he feels his hand trembling uncontrollably. The rabbits watch nervously, and he feels his heart pounding, afraid his fingers might accidentally knock them off. He raises the precious tomato high, and everyone marvels at this ripe, juicy fruit. The information window keeps popping up, announcing a gain of 10 experience points for harvesting ripe tomatoes. It turns out it's not just a plant, it's also an item with its own information. Releasing fat and adding 0.1 experience points for the eater are its greatest benefits. Although it's a small increase, it accumulates. Eating 10 tomatoes would yield a substantial score. Sejun starts thinking about harvesting more tomatoes to accumulate points. The second fruit, then the third, all reported by the system as ripe tomatoes. But by the seventh, it's no longer the case. It's only then that Sejun realizes he needs to pick the exact ripe tomatoes to gain points. Slightly green or slightly ripe won't count. It's tough, isn't it? The rabbits ignore him, happily playing around in the garden, dragging him along. After a while, Sejun manages to harvest quite a few tomatoes, earning enough points to reach level 4. Excitedly, he brings one tomato to his mouth, intending to taste it. Sejun hears some rustling nearby. It's the rabbit husband and the whole rabbit family signaling to him to share the food a bit. He realizes he didn't make the food alone, so he shouldn't eat it alone. Sejun puts on a pleading face and offers it to them, even having to beg them not to be angry anymore, sounding as humble as a master trying to please a pampered cat. Only when each one has a share in their hands does he dare to prepare to eat. The ripe tomato looks quite large compared to the rabbit family, but to Sejun, it's just like tossing a ball into a hoop. Chewing slowly in his mouth for a few seconds, his eyes widen in surprise as he realizes he's lying on lush green grass. A streak of yellow in the wide sky bursts into a blossoming flower, attracting Sejun to sit up and look closely. He feels the fresh taste of the grass in his throat, mingled with sweetness and sourness, like a summer fireworks display. It's an amazing feeling. Suddenly, Sejun's eyes filled with tears of emotion. But in the eyes of the rabbits, he seems foolish. If they could speak, they'd probably ask if this tomato was drugged, since their big brother is eating it and saying it smells like grass. The tomato harvest was so abundant that they couldn't finish eating them all. The rabbit family had to dig another storage pit, accompanied by freshly cut green onions. Each rabbit cub helped their parents, seeming a bit overwhelmed by the size, but Sejun lying there realized they had grown much bigger. The white rabbit's offspring, being farm rabbits, were indeed diligent. Instead of being a lazy bum like him, Sejun was already in bed preparing to sleep by this time. Pulling the dried onion mask over his eyes to block out the light, Sejun fell asleep as soon as he lay down. This system really has issues, only popping up in strange moments. Sejun had no idea. He rolled over and snored, causing the window to grumble and activate the Nokia Remix alarm clock. Nobody but the tower manager jumped up demanding tomatoes. His hand mechanically accepted the reward without any enthusiasm. Indeed, if you don't love, don't sow hope. He harvested so much fruit and yet only got the harvesting skill. He swallowed back his tears, but the next morning, he realized how useful this skill was. The tomatoes he picked were not ripe enough, but because of this skill, they all turned ripe. It was like having a golden touch for tomato harvesting. From then on, his points soared rapidly, and he didn't even need to wait for the tomatoes to ripe before harvesting them. Just as he was about to rest, the system, on behalf of the tower manager, popped up asking for a ridiculous 200 tomatoes. He knew this day would come sooner or later, and this time, there wasn't even a reward. It was outright robbery. With a reluctant expression, Sejun reluctantly offered dozens of tomatoes to the tower manager, accompanied by a few apologies. But that was just the beginning. Any opportunity the manager got, he demanded more. If there was any slip-up, he'd demand 250 tomatoes, and if fate struck, it would be 300 tomatoes. By the end of the day, the demand was 500 tomatoes, with no room for negotiation. Seeing that number, 500, Sejun felt his temples pulsating, uttering a firm no. The tower manager couldn't believe someone dared to refuse his task. He felt rebelliousness for the first time. If he was going to rebel, he might as well do it in front of the system board. Demanding 500 tomatoes from a garden smaller than a nostril was like to demanding the king to bow down to the farmer. If he could argue, so could the system. It told him the tower manager didn't care. The farmer's job was to plant and harvest. so stop complaining and hand over the tomatoes quickly. Sejun smirked, reminding the manager that wasn't his problem, was it? He tightened his grip on the bunch of onions in his hand, his voice trembling, saying these fruits were the result of his hard work. If the manager cared, he wouldn't demand so much. Accusing Sejun of making a mountain out of a molehill officially triggered a rage within him. His face twisted in extreme anger. He refused. Oh my goodness, this guy is in my tower, remember that. Sejun shrugged off the manager's demands, deciding not to comply, and turned to harvest onions with the rabbits. Ignoring the system's repeated reminders, the punishment for refusing tasks was death awaiting him. After grilling fish and sharing tomatoes, the system was ignored several times, getting slammed into Sejun's face, attracting his attention, and in return, the manager's face twisted in extreme anger. The tower manager wondered if a farmer's job was that simple. Why complain? Managers are managers, and farmers like him just follow instructions. Sejun was tired of arguing, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot, muttering that they forced him to do all these without acknowledging his abilities, offering rewards as tiny as grapes, but demanding countless tasks. As he looked up, his eyes welled with tears, his trembling voice criticizing, "What a terrible manager." On the other side of the globe, the manager heard the farmer cursing him, feeling both pain and heartache. Gritting his teeth, thinking he was about to get scolded, but instead heard the unexpected. I'm sorry." He didn't even finish his sentence. Sejun was happily eating a tomato, and the manager, with a relieved expression, swallowed the last word. Being scolded for not fulfilling his duties, don't blame the sea for being salty. Got it? If you want it fair and square, take these 5 tomatoes, then let's call it a break. No more demands. I won't give in. The rabbits don't even have anything to eat, and they're fighting over it. With the tomatoes disappearing from Sejun's hand, the tower manager accepted them, but he still felt bitter, saying this is the last time he'll let it slide. Got it? After conveying the message, the window disappeared immediately. Sejun smirked faintly. It seems like the tower manager wants to apologize to him. Suddenly, he found the manager quite cute, indeed. On the 91st day since Sejun jumped into the teleportation black hole, he met the blue planet for the 4th time. The dim light of the eclipse shone down on the crops, while Sejun covered himself with the Union leaf cloak, hugging a pillow against the cave wall. He worried he would have to endure the horrific screeching again due to not having enough experience points. Despite trying to eat tomatoes to increase his points, Sejun still felt afraid, hoping for time to pass quickly until nightfall. Suddenly, the light from the blue planet shimmered on the leaves. Sejun noticed something strange. The eclipse light, as usual, seemed to penetrate the green tomatoes on the branch, making them still green but with a toxic tint. The whole tree had only one sparkling blue-green fruit. Sejun, though stunned, realized he had to harvest it immediately. But that's not all. He also noticed the light shining on the sweet potato leaves on the ground. It seemed like there was some sort of arrangement. Sejun felt a strange idea in his head, so he stood up cautiously and ran back to the vegetable garden to verify his thoughts. Using his bare hands, he parted the leaves and dug into the soil beneath the sweet potato field until he could see everything underneath. The result was as expected, but Sejun was still pleasantly surprised. The sweet potatoes absorbed energy from the green moonlight, enhancing their delicious flavor and providing a boost to physical strength. This type of tuber ranked E with a storage time of up to 30 days and a slight increase in experience points. By pulling up the sweet potatoes, the system prompted a skill upgrade in harvesting, adding 50 experience points. Then he glanced at the green tomato on the branch, reached down, and felt an unbelievable sensation. With both hands holding 2 green fruits with a toxic tint, Sejun's heart was filled with joy. However, his happiness was short-lived as the secondary task window popped up again. Once again, the tower manager demanded aggressively for both the sweet potatoes and the green tomatoes, threatening consequences if not complied with. This time, he demanded both the sweet potatoes and the green tomatoes, refusing to accept refusal. Each demanding their own, insisting on their own terms. Sejun cleverly presented a basket of freshly harvested red tomatoes to make up for the previous refusal, hoping to avoid further complications. Whether the manager knew how to reject or not, Sejun was determined not to compromise. Sejun stubbornly refused to hand over each item separately. The tower manager, reluctantly, eventually relented, allowing him to enjoy the time harvesting these two green fruits. Thinking too much gave Sejun a headache, so he tossed the tomato into his mouth and chewed slowly. His body trembled as if suppressing something, because now his mouth seemed to have dozens of fireworks exploding one after another, easily earning him half a point of experience. Such a small tomato had such effects and flavors that tingled his taste buds. Sejun cleverly wrapped the sweet potatoes in a bundle of onions and threw them into the fire. Even without silver paper, grilling like this was fine. The anticipation of waiting for the food to cook was delightful. The next morning, after the blue moon disappeared, the rabbit's shop opened. The whole rabbit family was puzzled to see Sejun already waiting there. Placing the hot sweet potato on a leaf, he held it out to show the whole rabbit family. Even though the leaf wasn't opened yet, they could smell the fragrant aroma emanating from inside, making their mouths water. Suddenly, the rabbit husband jumped out to stop his wife and children, pointing towards Sejun and saying something like, "Pee-pee," which seemed to make the family a bit sad, but they accepted it nonetheless. Sejun realized its intention was to let the human have it to eat because there was only one potato, which touched him deeply. He reached out to pet the rabbit husband's head, deeply moved by its affection towards him. But actually, it was because last night he had secretly eaten one alone. Slowly peeling the purple skin, Sejun brought it to his mouth and took a big bite, then sprayed the whole potato out of his mouth. It was too hot for his tongue. Sejun grabbed his throat and screamed, while the rabbit family only paid attention to the sweet potato he had just spat out. The rabbit husband didn't let it slide. He quickly tried to grab the sweet potato, but 5 other golden hands were faster. Its children each took a piece and stuffed it into their mouths eagerly, ignoring their father's longing gaze. Unexpectedly, as soon as the potato touched their tongues, they couldn't bear the heat and continuously spat it out, lasting about 2 seconds before spitting it onto the ground. Sejun couldn't eat. The baby rabbits cried bitterly with burnt mouths. The rabbit husband didn't get any pieces and was disappointed to the max. So the precious piece of sweet potato suddenly became a discarded item on the ground because it was too hot for anyone to eat casually. The next morning, Sejun announced that from today onwards, he would plant sweet potato sprouts right when the baby rabbits were chewing on the sprouts. They looked up at Sejun in confusion, wondering if this human wanted to plant what they were eating. Indeed, he pointed at them, forbidding them from eating sweet potato sprouts from now on. Extremely shocking news. These rabbits, who had become plump from eating sweet potato sprouts, were now forbidden to eat them. They either jumped on Sejun to express their protest or lay on the ground sulking. Each rabbit had its own way, but overall, they refused. Out of options, Sejun had to bring out something else in exchange, namely super special snacks for the little ones. The baby rabbits had the same temperament as their mother. As soon as they heard about the snacks, they were all in, their mouths watering and their eyes sparkling with cuteness. So it was time to get to work. Sejun ordered each of the rabbit babies to carry a sweet potato sprout to the task. Passing by the mother rabbit cutting onions, Sejun asked her to leave a large onion plant for future harvesting. He was aiming to plant seeds instead of existing plants to see if it would activate any special benefits. On the other side, the baby rabbits, fueled by snacks, worked at full capacity. One dug holes, one carried the sprouts, and another planted them, completing the task efficiently. 5 baby rabbits plus their father helped with watering, and in no time, nearly 10 sprouts were planted, fresh and enticing. Unable to resist, one of the baby rabbits secretly nibbled on a sprout, only to get a swift tap on the head from its father. Sejun's blue tomato garden grew increasingly abundant, with branches heavy with fruit. He harvested hundreds of them, gaining experience points and advancing from a farmer level F to E. Bringing the tomatoes close to the fire, Sejun meticulously prepared snacks for the young farmers on the other side. The tower manager couldn't overlook this. He peeked to see what Sejun was doing, but vanished when Sejun turned back, like spying on someone for mischief rather than curiosity. So Sejun called the kids back from their break, excitedly introducing his exclusive grilled blue tomatoes skewered on piranha bones, exquisitely crafted to make the fruit sweeter and juicier. Each rabbit got a plant. Even their rabbit parents had a share, their eyes gleaming with excitement, eager to eat while still hot. Sejun had to stand up and caution them to blow on it to avoid burning their mouths. With a skewer in hand, observing the successfully grown potato sprouts, he used one hand to dig the ground, pulling out a mature plant, yielding a bunch of swinging potatoes. These were grade E potatoes, enhancing stamina slightly and aiding in fat reduction. Each plant yielded him 5 potatoes, totaling 15 of higher quality than the first harvest. Spotting a forgotten sprout on the ground, Sejun quickly replanted it, wasting no plant. After tending to the soil, the system prompted successful seeding, meaning Sejun needed to plant all by himself to upgrade his skill points. He raised his hand to signal the little ones to stop, aiming to earn a few points on his own. In the tower's library, a bulky figure nestled among stacks of books, leaning towards the firelight. Someone's black, sharp-nailed hand held a skewer with 20 blue tomatoes, roasting them over the blazing fire before devouring nearly all of them in one go. The mouth seemed to relish the taste, but immediately spat them out due to their bitterness. The black dragon's tail twisted uncomfortably, only realizing later that the bitterness was from the burnt outer skin with a bit of sweetness inside. It went back to its sphere to see what the farmer was up to. Realizing Sejun wasn't diligently working but lounging with the rabbit children, eating potatoes. No, it couldn't be. How could they eat potatoes without me, Aileen Frittani, the mighty black dragon? Oh my, not naming names, but I thought it was Fang's son from that dragon training secret. Thought he wouldn't wander the streets anymore, yet here he is managing this tower, specializing in shaking down vegetables and fruits from Sejun and his little ones. It's quite bitter not being invited to dine together. Suddenly, a supplementary system window pops up out of nowhere. The task is to bring a baked potato to the tower manager, with no reward, but refusal means death. Suddenly, the potato he's chewing tastes much worse. Sejun decides to butter up the manager. Why not say so from the start? Now there's a potato threatening what? Or else, offer the reward, Sejun will reconsider. A few seconds later, a window pops up, activating an A-rank mission, still about offering a baked potato, with a bonus related to the profession. Saying so. Isn't it cute? Just give it already. Sejun raises his hand to select and open the mission reward, receiving a level 1 seed shop, allowing 1 purchase per 30 days.